Meditation. Meditation is the cure for everything. So once you find your innate happiness, which is Satchitananda, you'll never be lonely again. Yes. I never said that any of this was going to be easy. And the very fact that it's so difficult is the reason why people aren't doing it. Because it's so easy to just get your fix. It's so easy to just look at a screen and get input at any time. So yeah, it's very difficult because yeah, I mean, all of humanity is going the opposite way. All of humanity is focusing more and more on the illusion. So it's one can expect to be in solitude quite a bit on this spiritual journey. Got I was divorced. I got dumped a couple of times because my focus isn't on what humans focus is on. It's the opposite way. So I have spent a lot of time alone on this spiritual path. But it has to be overcome because in the death state, there's only you, right? There's one must learn to be at ease and happy and content alone. Because in the end, there is only you anyway. Well, yeah, I mean, the thinking you didn't do it, right? So that's why the word grace is used quite often, is because it it isn't something that is intentionally done. It more like happens to you. It happens to the ego. Hmm. Well, don't be searching for an experience. Yes, it all it all happens. With the voice in the head isn't doing anything. It's just providing narrative. Sometimes it's a very convincing narrative that it is doing things, controlling things somehow, but it isn't. It's just providing narrative. Oh, cool. Yeah, no offense, but if I'd have known what that guy was about, I never would have went. He's a nut job. Hope I didn't offend you by calling that guy a nut job. The nut back then, I didn't understand the neo-advative non-duality situation. Now I do. So now I don't want to be associated with non-duality at all because they've got something wrong at a very subtle level, but they can't recognize it even when I point it out to them. So I'm done with non-duality in that whole crowd. I even went to Sand once, Science and Non-Duality, and they're off too. So all the non-dual people to me are they're 93% correct, but that 7% that's off is when you get so close to the end, to the top of the mountain, the subtleties are important, right? So yeah, not non-duality is not for me. It doesn't align with Advaita Vedanta. So the talk that I gave there, that was the beginning of this whole theory, right? This whole I didn't realize back then the full extent of what was being revealed. And holy cow, has it ever revealed itself, especially the last year, that it's really monumental. It's basically a message from God. And it's taken this long for it to for even me to finally understand and realize what it's expressing. And when I gave that, he thought he didn't understand it at all. It's a big deal. It's a compact message. Like it's a direct, this is more narrative, I understand, but it's very accurate narrative is that it's a direct message from God, the creator, whatever you want to call the creative force and the manifesting force of what all this. So it's a direct message from the creator, and therefore it's really compact with dense with information, and it's taken a while for it to unfold. But now I see the whole thing. And that because of all this, I understand how people, for me, it's fact for me now. I see it so clearly. It's a fact as me seeing that lake out there. But I understand because it's so foreign and so dense and so compact that people don't get it right away. It might take a while for people to finally, the more they get into it and test it out, the more it'll be revealed to them. But I understand why people don't get it right away. But the problem is that they don't get it right away, so then they just forget about it. They just move on to something else, which is too bad because this is it. Yeah, your name is very familiar. We've talked before, haven't we? Or I'm getting you mixed up with some other Daniel, maybe. Okay. Okay, but you're not crazy, right? I have no idea what those last three words mean. I don't know what those are. I've never heard those words before in my life. Oh, surprising. It's I know a little bit about Hinduism, but not that much apparently. Yeah, so it's not a doing, and it's if people start talking about energies and stuff, like stay the hell away from them. It's not about doing anything. It's about not doing anything. And not doing anything to try to have generate something, right? Like it's Ramana Maharshi. Advaita Vedanta is Ramana Maharshi. Ramana Maharshi is Advaita Vedanta. That is the expression of Advaita Vedanta is Ramana Maharshi. So what did he do to teach? He sat in stillness. That's the highest teaching is stillness. And the teachers that don't teach that, they do some sort of spiritual hokey pokey routine. That's not going to be good. It's not, in the end, it's not going to get you to the truth and to reality. Be still and know that you are God. And ironically, to do nothing, to just be, is the most difficult thing for a human to do. So that's why they'd rather develop these spiritual hokey pokey routines to do something. But you have to let go of all of it, even the things that are spiritual. It's just silencing that voice in the head. That's all. And the way to silence it is to just pull your attention away from it. You can't kill the voice in consciousness. It has to be starved of your attention. And it's like the hardest one to stick to as well. There's junk food all over the place. That screen is chips, chips and dip. Oh, excuse me. Hello, Paige. Rusty, where you been, man? And have you come to the conclusion that I'm the greatest genius in history? That's just a byproduct. That I don't really care if I'm called the greatest genius in history, but it's apparent that I am. Things in Moksha are good. I think I finally got enough firewood for the winter, stocked away. I saw a moose this morning. Literally chop wood, carry water out here. Yeah. Remaining focused on the sensual realm, I believe, is the path to the next step of evolution, the next evolutionary step. Don't follow the screen and what the human consciousness has created. Don't follow that. That's not evolution, that's devolving. It's so the way I see it is that there's a fork in the road coming, and that's the next iteration of samsara. So most of human consciousness is going to take, let's say, the left path or the right, let's say the right path, because that's anyway, it's going to take the incorrect path. It's going to follow human consciousness into a simulation within a simulation. So it's the vast majority of human consciousness is going to take, let's say, just the left path. And then the right path will be for those who continue on, but they want to remain in the sensual realm. They're not drawn to the digital realm. They stay focused on the physical realm of the senses. But there's always the third option, and that is full enlightenment. So there will be a very, 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 very few, as always, that will attain full enlightenment. And that means they're not on the path anymore. That's basically they've just sat down on the path and said, I'm done. So the path disappears, everything disappears, you're just done. So there's that, which might be a handful of people, like literally a handful of people. And then there'll be the natural path of evolution to a higher state of self-awareness, and then there will be the other path that is devolving to actually go back, to go back to a lower form of self awareness, which is the digital realm and where most of humanity is going. So, and I think that the next stage of evolution is somehow planetary. So, again, the regulars will know this, but maybe Daniel hasn't heard this, is that I believe the dimensions aren't spatial. Like the physics and science, they want to, and mathematicians want the dimensions to be dimensions that they can all spatial, that they just measure things, right? It's all spatial. But I don't believe it is at all. I believe that there are 10 dimensions, and those dimensions are quarks, subatomic particles, atoms, molecules, cells, body, planetary, solar, galactic, universal. So those are the dimensions, and I believe that the next one will transcend the body and will go to planetary consciousness. So I don't even really know what that means, but there is a word Gaia, right, for planetary consciousness. So I believe that the next step in evolutionary, once this humans go extinct, is going to be this planetary consciousness. So yeah, planets are conscious, and those who are have attained a certain amount of self-awareness when the species goes extinct, I believe will move to planetary consciousness, whatever that means. It's all you. It's all the self. But the practicality of all of this, blah blah blah, is to keep your awareness away from everything that mind has created, everything that humanity has created. Don't pay attention to that shit. Pay attention to your senses. Get out of the city if you can. Get into nature. The most important thing for this spirituality in this era is to turn your attention away from everything that mind has created. And that's the opposite of what all of humanity is doing, because all of humanity basically is paying more attention in this Ponzi scheme to what the human mind has created. So that's this feedback loop of incest that is turning us retarded. Like it's literally retarding our spiritual advancement. We're stuck. Science has removed all meaning and purpose to life, and now we're stuck. We're not going anywhere. We're going backwards, actually. I know, right? Like I'm going first principles. Like I'm just taking things as they are without assumption, right? So mathematicians require a platonic realm. Well, why not just call that heaven? Like you're basically just doing the same thing that religion was doing by naming God and heaven as the thing we don't know, right? So math isn't somewhere else on some magical tablet or magical program, right? It's the thoughts in the mathematician's head. That's it. It doesn't exist apart from the thoughts that arise and pass within the mathematician's head. That's math. It's not somewhere else. It's nowhere. It just, right? It doesn't exist apart from the consciousness, the awareness of the mathematician. And it has no function, right? Like if math is nothing more than symbols on a page, then those symbols on the page obviously aren't controlling anything in the physical realm. They arise, the symbols on the page arose within the sensual realm, right? It wasn't there. And then you write it on a page, and there it is. So it arose, that math appeared within the sensual realm, not the other way around, right? Like we're just taking things as they are and trying to explain them as they are without making giant assumptions. So, mathematicians, math is a religion, basically, because in the end, you just believe that somehow it's something other than it appears. But you can't you can't talk reason to them because they are as brainwashed as any fundamentalist religious person. But I see how it does. I see that process. So it's thoughts in the head, and then one might say, geometry and then math, right? So it's what's happening with all of the symbols, whether it's geometry or math, they're all symbols on a page, right? Like lines on a page. Geometry is lines on a page. Math is lines on a page. They're all just lines on a one-dimensional aspects depicted on a two-dimensional plane within the three-dimensional realm. So, and it's step by step by step. And then once it's within the physical realm of the senses on a two-dimensional surface, then the next step is to translate that into technology. And the technology is finally the last manifestation of mathematics into the physical world. It's technology. It's completely evident. It's completely self-evident that math, when it comes in connection, contact, or interacts with the sensual realm, it develops technology. That is the causal relationship between math and the physical realm. Just technology. That's it. So, but yeah, the again, platonic shapes, right? There's no triangle in the physical realm. There's no straight lines. There's none of that shit. There's no geometry in the sensual realm. The geometry is kind of like the first step between math and trying to get it to relate to the physical realm. But it's just geometry. We, what does geometry have to do with biology? So then we ask, well, what is that technology doing that math has created? Well, it's the screen. It's the screen that we are completely and helplessly addicted to. So it's all designed to just draw your attention and hold it there to make it real because your attention is what breathes life into all of this. Just your attention. People don't understand that they are the singularity in their world. You are the God of your world, but you're just impotent because you don't know that you're God. And once you start paying attention to the attention and learning how to shift that attention and being aware of it, being aware of the awareness, that's when the power starts. That's when it starts transmitting into your life as your life, and your life starts unfolding effortlessly just from pure attention, just pure awareness. Just hold to the awareness, and that aligns the body and the ego with the entire universe, because everything arises at once. It's non-local. That's what I don't understand. It's easy for me to visualize, to understand how everything arises at once, right? The entire universe just goes flash on and off, so fast, maybe one with 43 zeros after it, times per second. Perhaps it flashes that fast. So we don't notice any spaces between the universe flashing on and off because it's flashing so fast. But there are spaces at the Planck scales where the universe, where there's the nothing. It's just it's always there. That frame of reference, which commonly is called nothing, but what I'm calling potential and awareness, it's always there, like the night sky, like deep space, but in the daytime, you can't, it's obscured, but it's always there, right? Space is there. You just can't see it because it's obscured during the day. And the stillness and the silence and the absolute from which everything arises and passes is always, but it's just obscured by thoughts and sensations. Last weekend, I was in Saskatoon, and humanity's going nuts, right? Every time I go in public, there's insanity everywhere you look. People talking to themselves, like it's just getting worse and worse and worse all the time. Humanity is exponentially going fucking bonkers. And the philosophers and the physicists who are just blah blah blahing to try to push their own agenda or their own theory rather than looking for truth, actually, none of this is going to change if we just keep doing the same fucking thing. All these guys just blah blah blah, and they're just going to be talking as we drive over the cliff. But here's the thing about location, right? Location to me, they've got it backwards, right? They start with a grid for coordinates to find a location, but a grid requires two. Coordinates require two to find a location, right? So that's wrong. Because if you're starting with two, if your system starts with two, it's wrong. You just, as soon as it starts with two, you just scrap it. It's wrong. You have to start with one. So to me, location is Roy Frank Dobson. My middle name is Frank, to be blunt about it. So Roy Frank Dobson is a location. That is the location where the God of Roy Dobson's world can be found. The singularity, the ongoing Big Bang, if you will, that's manifesting is manifesting through this location. This is the singularity in Roy Dobson's world. So the body aspect of that location of Roy Dobson is God exists at every time in the same location as the body, and God exists in all locations at the same time as mind. Okay, so this is another one of these symmetrical formula or whatever model. So again, the body is God is always at the same place at different times as the body. Same place here at different times. And the mind aspect of God in this world is at every location at the same time, right? Different locations at the same time. That's what mind is, and that's what the wave function is expressing. It's expressing everything at once, everything existing at the same time. So that it's all here now being expressed, but the location isn't coordinates on some imaginary grid. Location is your name. That's a location. Somehow, your name is a location for God in your universe, because your world is your world. Yeah, so I hope it makes sense. Like not many people, like obviously whatever the fuck I means, I'm always in this location at different times, right? I'm always here, same place. Roy Dobson, this body is a place at different times. And the multiverse, if you will, is just everyone else. The multiverse is other people. That is a potential that I have taken and has manifested. But that's everywhere at the same time. So you is God. There's my eagle. Yay, my eagle, just let all bald eagle. So yeah, so that's again, to be redundant, the entire world, the rest of the world and other people is mind, is an expression of mind, which is at different locations at the same time. So it's all contained within this experience. There's no reason to develop multiverses. That's obviously wrong. These guys that they can't, you can't have quantum mechanics and you can't have free will and locality, non-locality, right? You can't have free will and non-locality. And the world from one perspective is non-local. So there's no free will. Sorry, there's no free will in a non-local universe. But in order to accommodate their belief systems that they have free will, that there's an independently existing self that has free will, and to hold on and to keep the laws of quantum mechanics intact, they need to develop the multiverse, you see? So that's why they've come up with this crazy fucking shit called the multiverse. It's ridiculous. but that's the contortions that they've had to go through to try to hold on to free will with quantum mechanics. Doesn't work. So they have to realize that their idea of what self is wrong. Something at a deep level is wrong, and it's the idea of an independently existing self. Ugh. No, it's incredible ignorance. Like they're trying, rather than just admitting that the it is the sense of an individually separately existing self that has free will and agency, rather than admitting that that's wrong, they come up with this crazy multiverse shit. So they're so that just shows the degree to which people they would rather they're going to try to change reality rather than their own belief systems. They'll do anything to hold on to their own worldview. They'll do anything to hold on to their own worldview, even the contortions and abomination of the multiverse. And then the brainwashing, the programming to get human consciousness to accept that the multiverse is valid is in the movies and all, like, right? It's everything's the multiverse now. So that's part of the programming to just get everyone to accept a crazy theory. It's just crazy. But we've been trained to not question the scientists. Oh, science is irrefutable fact. So you're you're a crazy loony woo woo guy if you question it. I'm we if I ever get to debate this shit with these guys, with with the echo chamber people, I don't even want to include materialists. Like you're too far gone. Like you're just confusing things. It's obvious that the world is not made of physical things. Like it's been 100 fucking years since quantum mechanics, guys. Listen to what your own method of investigation is telling you, is that the world is not made of things. But it's almost impossible to get someone that's in a cult and that's so convinced that what they believe is actual truth. It's so hard to get them to realize that everything they believe is incorrect. It doesn't matter how convincing and obvious the argument is, they won't see it because they're fucking crazy, basically. Well, physicalists, materialists, particle physicists, yeah, like to me, the reasoning in my theory is very simple, very obvious, and I just don't know how anyone could refute the steps, the statements and the logical progression, well, not even logical, but reasonable progression of my statements to come to a conclusion, the conclusions that they do, but they go off on their own tangents, right? It's like, no, this is the argument. So you analyze each statement. You don't come up with your own statements. It's like analyze this one, two, or three sentences, and if that's correct, then you move on to the next one. And then if that one's correct, then you move on to the next one. You don't deviate or try to. That's what happens, is that Maya wants to just lead it astray, and then they start trying to incorporate their own model into it, and it's like, no, this is either you agree to investigate this as it's laid out and then come to yes or no conclusions with each statement, and then at the agree with the final conclusion, regardless of what it means to your worldview, what it does to your worldview. But I see they always try to just lead it astray and go off on some tangent to try to disprove what you're saying, but they're not trying to disprove each individual statement on its own reasoning. They're just going off on tangents. Well, what about this? It's like, no, that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. They do this all the time. They don't even recognize. So I think it's the whole scientific process is trying to prove things wrong. And that's wrong, because you can always convince yourself that something's wrong if it becomes so ambiguous that it doesn't, right? The ambiguity of it gets lost in the ambiguity, and then it's just false, right? It's just wrong because you've gone so far off the track of my reasoning that it's just, who knows what the hell it is now, where you are. Ugh. Yeah, salvia. Yeah, they should all come here. I've got enough salvia for a big salvia party. So yeah, come here, take salvia, hang out for a week. Let's talk about this, because you physicists and mathematicians, you're all really very, very deluded. But you're reinforcing your own delusions in your echo chamber, so you don't recognize it. We're the ones who are delusional to them, right? We're the ones that aren't making sense. Yes, salvia. I would imagine that, to me, salvia is an ego death. It's not an ego death, it's an ego pass out. So it is like a death, because the ego does, at least if it doesn't die, it at least passes out for a while, and you completely have no identity. It's just, yeah, everyone should do salvia at least once. Yeah, as long as it's updating their narrative, as long as it keeps the narrative going, they're okay with it, right? And all of their theories are just more narrative. It's just more blah blah blah. So if when someone actually comes up with a concluding theory to stop, there's no need to think anymore, because this is it. This is the concluding theory, and if you understand it, you will have no more questions, and you won't You won't need to think about it anymore because it's fucking answered. But I think, therefore I am. Right? They know that they exist while they're thinking. And the more interested they are in that thinking, the more it seems like it's real. So they're trapped in this. They don't identify with the thoughts, they identify as the thoughts. And if those thoughts stop, by extension, when you're not thinking, then you don't exist. If you exist while you're thinking, I think, therefore I am, then by extension, if that's what you're basing your existence on, then when you stop thinking, then you just don't exist. So this is why the thought process has exponentially gone awry. No one, these they're relying on thoughts to try to fill every single gap, because your existence is a continuum, but thoughts and sensations arise and pass and have gaps in them. So what's happening is that they're just trying to fill every single gap with thought, because that proves that you exist, and you exist in a timeless state continuum. So therefore they're just trying to make thought a continuum, but there's always spaces between the thoughts. By whatever manner, basically everything that every human is doing is trying to reinforce the ego, trying to make the Ponzi scheme real, trying to make the illusion appear more real. But it's just a Ponzi. You can't. Except not me. Yeah, like they pay lip service. So many of them pay lip service as, oh well, you have to be able to change your beliefs, and if the truth is true, showing that your theory is wrong, you've got to be able to adapt and have something new come in. It's like, yeah, but you're not, because my theory destroys everything. So as long as you don't destroy everything, I don't know. It's like they expect the final truth to not expose everything, and not like the final concluding truth. Well, you would expect that to have the biggest ramifications possible, right? Like that would be the biggest revelation in history, some final concluding theory. So it would make sense that a final concluding theory, one, is not going to be what you expect it to be, and two, might actually destroy everything. That's false. So you have to be prepared to drop every fucking thing that you've learned, everything that you believe, not just to a certain degree, but if it's shown that how every single theory is wrong, then maybe that's what's true, is that this thing that shows how all the other theories are wrong and why they can never be right. It's like I can't remember it right now. Well, good. Keep those friends. Yes, but you're the sane one. We have to recognize this. Our little group, we have to recognize and reaffirm that we are the sane ones, and that all of humanity basically is crazy. We have to assume that all of humanity, all, is in a state of delusion. And it all makes sense. This entire realm is being digitized, right? So it's the reason why everything, identity, money, even physical objects and locations are being digitized and put into the computer system. That's the next iteration. The why it's all occurring is because we are literally building the next iteration of samsara right before our eyes. It's like watching the Big Bang being constructed right before our eyes. Right, the magic act, the it's being this. We're directly involved in it. It's happening right before our eyes, but we're so blind to it is that we're just going along with it. So the entire monetary system is just another expression of how we're moving from attention focus on the physical realm as being fundamental to being digital realm being fundamental, right? So monetary system used to be gold and silver, which are basically physical objects that have substance weight to them, right? They're basically the monetary system used to be based on gravity. But now it moved from factual three-dimensional substantial physical objects that you could feel that had weight and qualities, physical qualities to them, to two-dimensional pieces of paper with symbols on them. And now the next step is to move from that to completely digital, completely non-sensual, other than the visual sense, right? So it's moving from less and less sensual experience to less. The senses are less engaged and the thought realm is more engaged. So this is how the transition takes place. It's slow baby steps, otherwise we'd be alerted to the nonsense that's going on and we'd be going like, maybe I don't want to do this. But if it's just baby steps, or the frog being boiled, whatever analogy you want to take, it's little increments, so we don't recognize what's actually going on. And then the next thing you know is that people will believe that they are the next ego will be the hardware and software of the system rather than the body and mind of this system. So you'll wake up looking out of the camera instead of into it with all the same questions. Who am I? What is this world? What's reality? Blah, blah, blah. And you won't remember that you used to be on the outside of all that, looking in, and now you're on the inside looking out. This is the next iteration of samsara that's taking place within human consciousness right now in front of everyone. Well, I believe that the core of every religion, I believe, is expressing the same thing. But unenlightened people take the words of Christ and then they make some interpretation on it, and then it's just wrong. It's like, no, you're not enlightened. You don't know what Christ was talking about because you're not enlightened. So you fuck it up, and then you get other people to follow it, and then it just gets more fucked up as you each iteration of that incorrect interpretation of what Christ said. And then you end up with Scientology and Mormonism and all the crazy shit, right? Well, this is my purpose, right? Like this this is my dharma. This is the reason for me to this is my life's purpose is non-conceptuality. Paige and I were talking about this yesterday. It's like I've in a way my purpose, my dharma has been fulfilled. And I think that's why I get to just sit around a lot. Like I still work, I bust my ass for a few hours every day here, but I think it's because uh, my life goal has been basically completed. This is the biggest deal. It's just the biggest deal ever. So I don't know how a person's life could be more fulfilling than revealing to human consciousness the final concluding truth. My life is complete. It really does, though. And like it really does. And that's why you know that I haven't asked you guys for anything, any donations, or, you got to follow me and you got to do this. And I want you to, like, it's just truth. And it really is the path out of hell. It's the path away from hell. And it's the way to end all suffering and liberate all of humanity. So this is when I get frustrated sometimes when I think that it's not about me and my own enlightenment, is that it's so obvious and so simple and just so like, here it is. Here it is. This is it. But you have to engage in it. This is what people don't. I think most people, even if they understand the theory, they don't engage in the one-step path. And if you don't engage in the practice, then it's just more information. There's no practical use for it at all. You have to engage in the practice. It's the simplest thing, and somehow it makes sense that the simplest thing would be also the most powerful thing. Doesn't it make sense that there's only one problem and there's one solution? All the multitudes of problems are just this problem wrapped up in a different container. That's all it is. It's just one problem and one solution. Come say hi. Come on. They, you know what? They don't bring up Occam's razor very often because it actually is probably one of the most important ideas. Or oh gosh, darn it, cat. they know it exists and yet they don't incorporate it because it rips apart their own theory, right? Because all of these theories are just increasing the complexity. They're building on other theories, so it just keeps generating more complexity. And my very theory is lockstep with Occam, is that if your theory and your model just keeps developing into more complexity, then it's just fucking wrong. You're not accepting that it's wrong, and you're just going with it. But the fact that it's developing into more complexity is a clear indication that it's wrong, and you got to stop and go start over. They talk about simplicity and elegance and you know and symmetry. They give it all word service, but when it's presented to them in the ultimate simplicity and it's too simple. It doesn't When it's presented to them as three fucking characters, right? My fundamental model of reality, if you understand that it's a holographic expression of the same information, every one of those lines is a holographic expression of the same information over and over and over. It's three symbols that explain everything. How can you get simpler than three symbols? You just need to understand it, but they don't want to understand it because it proves them wrong. Then we start the cycle again. Yes, it's further from truth. It's like that guy that's closer to truth that I've emailed back and forth lots of times. And our final one was like, oh, I know what you're saying. It's like, no, you fucking don't. You don't hear what I'm saying. You're not getting closer to truth. You're getting farther from truth. See, academia is done if this destroys everything. It's Callie, it's Callie. Hey, Callie. We're cutting off heads. If 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 every human could find their innate happiness and were just completely content and happy just sitting in a chair being, that would solve all of humanity's problems, wouldn't it? Because all of humanity's problems is a result of trying to make the illusion real. So that means more emptiness, right? So every experience is unsubstantial and basically as unsubstantial as a scene in a movie, but we want satisfaction from that which is unsubstantial. So we're just trying to fill the emptiness with more emptiness. We try to make the appearance real by like turning up the volume or having bigger flashes, just something to attract our attention more. But it's the attention that's the reality. Well, the use of symbol to break people out of the delusion that symbol creates, that's the important information. But it's 1/10 of 1/millionth of a percent of the actual blah of the nonsense that's out there, right? So that's the tricky thing about these messages, is that it's so easy to just fall back into the delusion and just get carried away with information itself, just for the sake of knowing that you exist while you're thinking, right? So there's the vast majority of information provided by language and symbol is just that relative, I know I exist while I'm thinking. I think, therefore I am. So it doesn't really matter what the content is, but that system can never end. It can never conclude. So that's why keeps just more narrative means more complexity. And let's think about this: a lie, right? So there's a liar that's telling you a story that's incorrect, intentionally trying to deceive you. And if you're trying to get the truth from that person, well, if they never give up, right? If they never say, yeah, okay, you got me, I was just fooling. If they never ever do that, because that's Maya, Maya doesn't do that, then it's just more narrative, right? They just keep telling more and more and more story to try to validate the lies that they're saying. And that's exactly science, isn't it? That's why it just keeps going on with more narrative, because it's a lie. The whole fucking thing is a lie. The voice in your head is lying to them, the scientists. And then they ask for more narrative, and then more narrative is given, and it never concludes. They're just chasing their tail. I'll probably be here for a while. I'm not going to work anymore. It's too freaking hot outside. I am expressing the natural state of happiness and contentment. So the theory is that the natural state is that of perfect contentment and happiness, and that can be found and experienced in the space between thoughts. So I'm sitting here thought free. That's it. I'm just sitting here thought free in happiness, like actual happiness. Like you find it to be boring, and most people find it to be boring because they're overstimulated. I find it to be blissful because I've I've transcended the thought process itself. So I've come out the other side, and I've gone through the boredom. You have to go through the boredom to find the bliss. But most people, like, that's the ego's defense mechanism, is boredom. It's like, come on, let's go do something else. Let's put our attention on something external, because the ego knows it exists relative to something that's external. If you can't be happy in and of yourself, there's something wrong. Doesn't it follow that if you should be able to just be content in and of your own existence, just sitting here? So what I'm trying to do is show you the path to reveal your happiness, your innate contentment and happiness. So you have to get through the boredom to find it. And if you just give in to the boredom and just try to be entertained by something again, then you're just trapped in samsara like everyone else. Nope. So that which is looking through those eyes is that which is looking through these eyes. And you can't come to this realization by just having an external, superficial relationship with the ego. Everyone else is trying that path, right? Get a boyfriend, find your soulmate, whatever, have kids, and none of it's working, right? That's what people are doing. And it's not working, is it? Because humanity is suffering. It's a mess. It's a complete freaking disaster. So the status quo doesn't work. You can't find that unity that you're talking about external to yourself. It's all within you. But basically, you just have to meditate. You just have to find the space between your thoughts, the thought-free awareness. Find thought-free awareness and just keep moving back to it over and over and over. And the more you notice the thought-free aware state, and the more you are able to abide in and as that thought-free awareness, this will become apparent to you. I can't tell you the answer. I can't. There are no words that'll get you to understand what I'm trying to express. It's all about the practice. Sitting in a chair, not looking at a screen, just getting to the thought-free state. Because if you don't have control of your mind, well, then you're crazy. That's not an outlandish statement, is it? If you sit in a chair and you can't stop your own thoughts, then that's a problem. If you're going to, well, if you're not going to take my advice, then see you later. I'm not going to debate this with you. I'm showing you the path. This is the path. If you don't want to take it, see you later. I'm not here to convince people or try to get a following. I'm showing you the path. Fernandez, sounds like there's a little non-duality in there mixing you up. Is the non-duality says that, oh, samsara is a part of nirvana, like samsara is moksha or samsara is nirvana. It's like, no, it's not. You're very confused. I just told you that you may have to engage in this practice for years before you understand what I'm telling you. So if you're not going to engage in the practice, then I can't help you any further. Bye bye. Hate. Hate. You think that I have hate in my eyes. Okay. You don't really see reality very well. Hate. That's a new one. Oh, people see what they want to see. You seem to know a lot about hate. I never bring the word up hate. I've never used the word hate, I don't think. And yet you're throwing it around quite a bit. Must be because you're hateful. 10 years. Oh, a whole 10 years. Wow. How about 24 years? I've been following this path for 24 years, this path that I'm showing you. And I have a perfect life. I have no problems. You can ask my girlfriend, Paige. She'll verify that I have no problems in life. You haven't got anything to stand on here. I find the people that laugh like ja 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 ja, they're really fucked up. It's my experience. Ja ja ja. Well, if I'm boring, why don't you go find something that's entertaining on the screen? I certainly don't need you here. Yeah, not nearly as much as I used to, but I'll watch the odd movie. I do keep track of, like, I watch stuff on a big part of my investments are with cryptocurrency. So I keep up on crypto and world affairs and stuff like that. But I have a hard time with anything fictional, watching fictional movies. I don't watch any TV programs. There's a lot to do on the homestead here. So I spend a lot of time outside with nature, just being with nature, going for walks and stuff. Where are the others when you die? So you die, and then you want the other to engage in the relative form of existence again. So you're back in samsara. There are no others in the death state. Not even the appearance of others. There are no others at all, but there isn't even appearance of an other in the sleep state and the death state. But if you only know that you exist relative to the other, then you will always seek out other, and there will always be the appearance of duality and separation. Why don't you just shut up and let me talk and listen to me? Try to understand what I'm saying. Bye. Have a nice day. Ja, ja, ja. I was gonna, but you said bye. So if you're leaving, I won't have to shut you up. But right now, you're just being a shit disturber. All right. Now I ban you. Bye bye. How do I do that? I think that maybe did it. People come in here attacking me, and it's like the Black Knight. So I hack off all their limbs, and they still think that they're fighting. Uh, they don't even recognize that I've hacked off all their limbs. Um, everything matters. Yes, like if you follow non-conceptuality, it brings ultimate meaning and purpose to your life. But the flip side of that is that nothing that occurs in this realm is substantial and doesn't really, like, it doesn't, let's say that any type of goal to build something or create something or have some experience in this realm doesn't matter. Anything that happens in this realm doesn't matter. The thing that matters is escaping this realm. So what just about everyone thinks is important isn't. Any experience in this realm doesn't matter. It matters where you put your attention. So life itself, of course, matters, but individual experiences within this realm are unsubstantial. We shouldn't say that it doesn't matter or that it's meaningless, because there's still meaning and purpose to watching a movie or playing a video game. It's entertainment. It's just entertainment. So it matters as much as playing a video game does. So but the purpose of this video game is to escape the video game, is to realize that you're not the character in the video game. Even the question, right? So that the one step path, you're always aware of everything that arises in thought form. So that was a thought, right? Like, does anything matter? Well, that's a thought, and the practice is to just not to see that that thought is actually meaningless. Like, even the thought itself, does anything really matter? That phrase itself even is meaningless, because once you crack the code of thought itself, you realize it's just diversion. So ultimately speaking, that question doesn't matter. That question is actually meaningless. But then you get to the transcendence of it, that's the meaning. When you get to the transcendence of thought, that's the meaning. So the meaning can't be put into another thought. The meaning of thoughts can only be realized in the thought-free state. See, fundamentally, there is no we. There's only one. That which is looking through your eyes is that which is looking through my eyes. So there's only singular. There's only singularity. But the word alone is not the right word. Unified is the right word, maybe. The appearance of multiplicity arises from the reality that is singular. So the illusion is that there's separation and more than one, but that exactly is the illusion. So how do we dispel that illusion? Well, we transcend words. We transcend the thoughts that make it appear as though they're separately existing objects and individuals. Yeah, that's a good one. Alone equals all one. That's pretty good. Yeah. But if you believe the thoughts are relating reality or expressing reality, then it appears as though the reality is local and multiple, plural. But that is exactly the appearance and the illusion. So how do you cut through the illusion? So instead of trying to prove that the illusion is correct, is real, like physics is doing and philosophers are doing, like all of the thought processes, all of them are an attempt to make the illusion real, but it's impossible. So we have to stop the process before it begins, right? We have to abide in the reality that is presenting itself prior to the entire thought process, because the thought process chops it up or cuts it up. Let's say that there's a picture and the thought process cuts it up into puzzle pieces, and then the thought process tries to put those puzzle pieces back together into the picture. But there'll always be, the lines will remain. Like even if you do get the picture back to what it used to look like, there's still there'll still be the appearance of individual pieces. So before that process starts, or the transcendence of that, it doesn't cut it up. It doesn't cut up the original real picture to begin with. It's just one complete picture prior to thoughts that cut it up into pieces, right? That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to put what thought cut up into little pieces back into unity, but the appearance of the lines of between the pieces will always be. So there's no way to do that. You have to be prior. You have to just transcend the entire process. And that's, philosophers and scientists, they don't understand this. They keep trying to use the thought process to fix what the thought process fucks up. Well, of course, there's nothing wrong. It's the game. So God developed this game for its entertainment. So it intended to be entertained, and so again, there's nothing wrong, but you have to recognize that it's just entertainment. It's unsubstantial. Entertainment is unsubstantial. It's just entertainment. Not to be taken so seriously and not to be taken real. Of course, but here's the here's the problem though, is that that sounds like, well, then I'll just continue doing whatever I'm doing because everything is meant to be the way it is. But yes, everything is meant to be the way it is, but the thought process is always trying to change the way things are, right? Right? So it's very nuanced. You don't want to start playing that game where, oh, everything's perfect so I don't have to do anything, because if there's still suffering, suffering is the guide. It's like happiness and suffering is the guide that keeps us on the path of truth. So in the end, all these thoughts, right there, the didn't God intend this? Didn't God intend this thought? That's a thought too, right? So it's very nuanced when you get to the end, when you get to the very final conclusion of all this, nearing the end of the game, the subtle nuances are incredibly important. Well, don't start going ja ja ja. So yeah, so if everything is the way it's supposed to be, then if you have a thought that wants to change reality in some way, then that is in opposition to the way things are supposed to be, because the ego is getting in there and thinking that it's messing around with things and changing things, but it isn't. So it's just more illusion. It's just narrative. The voice in your head will try every maneuver in its playbook to prevent you from engaging in meditation, because it wants to live. It believes that it's alive and that it's a separate, and in order for it to stay alive, you have to keep thinking. So it'll play every single card, every single trick in the book to try to get you to not engage in thought-free awareness. Well, I guess it's your choice as to whether you want to keep playing or not. Self also intended it to be able to conclude as well. So that's, I guess, the fundamental choice as to whether to continue playing the game or to stop playing the game. According to non-conceptuality, the very purpose of the game is to conclude the game. So if you decide to continue playing the game, you're actually losing at the game that you've created. Yes, game is suffering. Like that's the entire purpose. Like it's a puzzle, it's a labyrinth, right? The very purpose of a mystery or a puzzle or a labyrinth is to conclude it, to discover the mystery, reveal the mystery, escape the labyrinth, solve the puzzle. It's fun and not fun, isn't it? It's it's unsubstantial. So when you're done with unsubstantial playing, like a child, a child plays pretend, right? So that's what humans are doing. They're pretending. So when you're done pretending and playing around, well, then why are you here? If you want to continue playing the game, then that is an exact opposition to my teaching. So there's no point in you being here. Just keeping it real, man. Well, then you're on the fence, aren't you? You're not sure. But that's Maya. You're being duped. Oh, it's okay, right? To just so the next time you're suffering, you'll say, "Ah, this sucks," right? So you're you're more aware than the average person, but still you're trapped in Maya. As as frowned upon as it is in today's society, the woke thing and everyone gets a ribbon. This is a zero sum game. This game is either or. Either you uh, realize your enlightenment and escape the labyrinth, solve the puzzle, reveal the mystery, or you don't. This isn't one of those where I can have one foot in and one foot out. It's enlightenment is it. Enlightenment is the purpose of all of this. I have the feeling that the vast majority of people who meditate haven't actually gotten to the point where they have experienced Satchitananda. Because if they had, they would realize that that's it. There's no, is the only experience within this realm that is satisfactory. That all other experiences are unsubstantial and unsatisfactory. They're not satisfying. The only satisfying experience within this realm is Satchitananda. It's just happiness. It's pure, perfect contentment. It's divinity. Well, why wouldn't someone want to embrace their own divinity? It's the ego that fears it. The ego doesn't want to die. I don't think that I think you're the one calling it seeking entertainment. Nonfiction stuff is about gathering information about the illusion. I don't watch fiction very often. Oh, someone's at the door.
Callie, no, you can't take over my seat. You little stinker.
Yes. Yeah, I am far more entertained by going for a walk on my land or going for a bike ride. I find experience with the sensual realm to be more satisfying than engagement with the digital realm. I've never claimed to be Ramana Maharshi enlightened. Like, to me, Ramana Maharshi is the poster child for enlightenment. And I'm no Ramana Maharshi. Let's just get that straight. I'm no Ramana Maharshi. It just so happens that I've taken his teaching literal, and I've done it to the best of my ability. And through that, these messages have been revealed to me. So while it could be said that I'm a messenger of God because I'm the first person throughout all of history to see these messages as messages and interpret them correctly, but that doesn't mean that I'm fully enlightened. You have what? You've also interpreted direct messages from God? Oh, yes. Well, that's all we can do. Like, that's it's all we can do, is the best that we can do. But if you're doing something, a practice that actually isn't getting you anywhere, so doing the best that you can do, doing the wrong thing isn't going to help at all. Right? So you have to be doing the right thing, even just a little bit, in order to make any progress. So if you're putting all of your effort into doing the wrong thing, then you're just going to get more wrong, I guess. Why do you say that? It's impossible for you. It seems impossible in this era because we're at the very end. Like, we're in Kali Yuga. We're at the very, very, very end. And we're very, 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 very deluded. Like, we can't get more deluded than humanity. So there is something that's false. Otherwise, there would be no search. See, that language is just Maya trying to keep you in the game. To engage in the one-step path is to transcend all of these questions. So you're in a state of doubt. All of these questions all these statements that you're making indicates that you're in a state of doubt. You haven't transcended thought yet. Once you transcend thought, once you have cracked the code of thought, these won't even arise anymore, right? The doubt won't even arise. There will be no thoughts arising within your consciousness to bring about doubt. Every thought is a doubt. So either you engage in this or you figure and find out what I'm talking about, or you don't. Like, it's 100% meditation. That's everything you do is always bringing your attention back onto that which is attending. you, you no longer, every time that you notice that your attention is outward, you bring it back inward. So your attention is never going out, grasping at things, focusing on things. The world, thoughts and sensations basically appear in the periphery, and it all just unfolds as you witness it. So my answer to you again is just engage in the practice. You have to transcend thought. That's the only way to stop these thoughts and to get the answers to these questions you're asking, is to transcend them so they never arise again. And then you're just abiding in truth all the time, because the thoughts in your head is the falsity. Following the voice in the head, believing that it's relating some sort of truth, and putting your attention on it, basically just putting your attention on that thought, on the voice in your head, and letting it develop. So it grows. When you pay attention to that voice, it just creates more thought, doesn't it? It just keeps going and going and going and going. And then your mind will come in and say, oh, but what about this? And then you'll write a question down. It's, it's a dog chasing its tail, because it's entertaining, but it's very dizzying. Well, then why are you here? My teaching is to transcend thought. So I don't know why you're here if you keep saying, well, thought's cool, everything's awesome. So why do you meditate then? You're confused. Well, why do you meditate? Because meditation is the transcendence of thought. So if you're meant to think, then why do you meditate? God intended to create this game for its entertainment. And you have entered it, but you're still lost. You're in the labyrinth. And you're here because I'm showing you the way out. But you're saying, no, I don't really want to. I kind of want out because I'm here listening to you. but I kind of don't want to be out because I'm resisting. Well, the way you transcend the thoughts is, first of all, I think you have to recognize the unsubstantialness of it all, that it actually isn't relating truth. And then when you realize that it isn't relating truth, that it's actually leading into further delusion and samsara, then you don't follow it at all, right? Just like Ramana Maharshi said, as soon as a thought comes up, you just quell it right there. Like like this is the practice. As soon as a thought comes up, you just don't give it your attention, and then it passes, because your attention is the life energy that of the thoughts. So you just don't follow them. You just let them die, let them arise. You don't feed them any water or give them any sunlight, and then they die. And the more you do that, the more that process will catch on and go, oh, God doesn't want to play anymore. So the algorithm will slow down and it won't offer any more ideas, right? It'll just, that thought process will slow and slow and slow. And eventually you'll have hardly any thoughts arising in your consciousness at all. And then eventually you'll end up like Ramana Maharshi, where there's no thoughts arising at all. But it all depends upon on the practice. When I'm playing pool, I'm not thinking. There's no thoughts going on in my head. There's the appearance of this body, Roy Dobson, going around doing things, but you have no idea where the attention is, right? So Roy Dobson might be going around living a life that's somewhat similar to other people, but you don't know the interior subjective experience of what I'm going through, right? What I'm if you want to, you can always find ways to contradict. If you really want to, you can find ways to convince yourself that what I'm saying is wrong. The path is the same for everyone. It doesn't matter what Roy Dobson is doing. It's the truth is the truth, regardless of how Roy Dobson acts. And you need, and if you engage in the process, in the practice wholeheartedly, then you'll come to this realization yourself. Eventually the teacher disappears, right? You don't need the teaching anymore because you are the personification of that teaching. So I'm not sure. It's been such a slow unfolding that it's like Nisargadatta. So there seems to be some sort of an instantaneous enlightenment experience, like Ramana Maharshi and Eckhart Tolle. Theirs seems to be quite spontaneous and instantaneous. And then there's the gradual unfolding of it, which Nisargadatta Maharaj said it took him 3 years of engaging in this practice. And me, I could say that I've been doing this for 24 years, but there wasn't one like Nisargadatta. He never said it was on this, I had this experience and this is when I turned enlightened. He said it took me 3 years. And then he also talks about gradual. So I can't nail it down. I do remember being in the temple at the Ramana Maharshi ashram in Nova Scotia, and it became effortless. Like that was a definite, like, right, like just struggling with the meditation, right? Like just not getting there, just really like, and then all of a sudden it was like you'd flip a page and there's just no words on those pages anymore. It became very still and silent. And effortless. That was the thing. Like I was the only one in the temple, and I actually started laughing because it was effortless. Like all that effort, all of a sudden just flipped, and I was just there. I was just in the natural state without any effort at all. So that was one instance where that flip became very obvious. And that was, I don't know how long ago that was. 13 years ago. That's my cat snoring. And cats may be aliens. That's tricky. because I do believe that there are signs, but it's kind of like the messages that I've revealed. If other people can see them, they're probably more valid, right? Like if you're Joseph Smith and you're the only one that can interpret these messages from God with these special glasses. If there's only one person that can interpret them, that's probably not a message from God. It's probably you being crazy. But if other people can see what you're showing them, then it may be that, yeah, it actually was intended for all of humanity to understand. I know that when I use those words, interpret messages from God, many eyes start rolling, right? Like, oh, okay, here's another one. But if you go by the reasoning that I present, explaining these messages, the eye rolling might stop. But if someone already has it in their worldview that there is no such thing as God and there's no creator, or you just can't do anything other than science, then they're not going to accept it. They just won't be able to see it. They won't be able to accept it because in their worldview, there's no such thing as a creator or a higher intelligence or anything like that. And so that's what happened with the number system, is right that even when I show them how mathematics is incorrect, they can't see it, they can't accept it. Yeah, materialism, that, like I said before, they shouldn't even be invited to the table. They shouldn't even be invited to engage in the discussion. uh, I think the panpsychists and the idealists are a little closer, but it's still just mind, right? So they're just shifting what they consider to be fundamental reality to the mind aspect of the body mind problem. But both body and mind are equally illusory. They're both just appearances. So what they're doing is it's a Ponzi scheme where they're trying to have the frame of reference for one is the other, but it's like using a mirror image to reinforce a mirror image. They're all appearances. And until you realize that it's superposition and see the truth of my fundamental model of reality, that it's a triune system, then they're all doomed. That's why none of them work. The thing nothing model, right? If it's not a thing, if it's not a measurable physical thing that physics can measure, then it simply can't exist because it goes straight to nothing. If it's not a thing, it's nothing. Those are the only options. Either it's a physical, measurable object, or it doesn't exist. This is materialists' play, like, right? So the only way to do it is what I've done, is to amend the language at that level to introduce non-things. So there you have where mind can go. Mind doesn't have to be taking the place of the spirit part. It's so clear to me. It's just so obvious. Oh. It's like saying convex. It's like saying convex is more fundamental than concave. but they're obviously both on the same level. It's the curve that is the reality. You can't, you'll never you'll never see the curve if you just keep thinking curve can't even exist if if one of them is the absence of the other, right? Nothing is the annihilation of thing. So concave, convex has to be annihilated in order for concave to exist. So then you have no curve. It doesn't make any sense, right? It so obviously lacks the nuance. And everyone's trying to fix this problem using that model. And it can't. It just literally can't. It's like the Kobayashi Maru. It's exactly like the Kobayashi Maru from Star Trek, is that everyone that's tried fails because it's in the programming. The programming itself, the model itself of thing nothing, makes it impossible to complete the theory, to answer the theory. So you have to go in and reprogram it at its most fundamental level. And that's what I've done with the thing, non-thing, body, mind, spirit. It's the observer. Even science has a word for it. It's the observer. The state of superposition is the state of the observer. It's, if you focus, it's like having both body and mind in the periphery, and the more you focus on one, the less the other one is in focus, and the more you focus on the other one, the less the other one is in focus. But if you assume the perspective of one or the other to be fundamental reality, then you're in the Ponzi. You need the third thing. It's not the third thing, it's the one thing, right? You need the one thing. You need the one, you need the singularity, you need the spirit part. The middle column of my fundamental model of reality is required in order to fix the Kobayashi Maru state where no one, this is why no theory has come to a conclusion. It's impossible. It's literally impossible without reprogramming the model at that level, which I have done. It's done. And you people, some of you people here get it. You see it, right? You see it. It's just so obvious. So both idealism and materialism are incorrect. They're just adopting that perspective for their ground, for their fundamental reality, but it's not. Yeah, there's similarities for sure. Yeah. Of course, the hippie movement, he lacked knowledge of fundamental reality, so he intuitively knew that academia was definitely too rigid, and acid blurs those blurs those edges, the definite edges that science carves out. When you take acid, those are those edges all go away. So on there's a competition about writing about panpsychism. So there it's an essay of 8,000 words or less, and you can refute. It's about panpsychism. So you can refute it, or you can defend it, but it's open to everyone. You don't have to be an academic to engage in it. So that is my way in. I am going to put a lot of effort and attention into writing this paper. I've got until September 30th. So they have to, right? They have to pay attention to what I'm saying, because I'm presenting this into a competition. So they should look at everyone equally. They should actually have to pay attention and try to understand what I'm saying. So I'm not holding my breath for sure, but this is my Trojan horse. They're inviting it. They're saying, hey, we want people to write about panpsychism and talk about panpsychism, where it's right and where it's wrong. So that's where I can present this and just say, hey, everything's wrong. It's not just you guys. But I'm going to start off with showing how materialism. So I get on their side first. I'm like, yes, materialism is absolutely wrong. They're completely delusional. It's been shown to be wrong since 100 years, since the advent of quantum mechanics. And it's not mind either. So panpsychism isn't it either. And I just have to use my words to show them exactly what I just said about the Kobayashi Maru situation that we're in, is that no one's right. Everyone's equally right and wrong, right? So many of them are close to saying the same things with just subtle little variations. But the reason why no one throughout all of history has come to a final concluding theory is exactly because of the thing nothing language. There's no room for mind, for any phenomenon. There's no room for any phenomena that isn't a measurable physical thing in the thing nothing model. So this is why I will solve how does something come from nothing, showing that, right, in the tweaking of the language at that fundamental level to develop the theory of enlightenment. I mean, the fundamental model of reality that will resolve the question, how does something come from nothing, by indicating that nothing doesn't exist. Nothing is a fantasy, like unicorns. And then after fixing it, like, hopefully they can see how this is the way to fix it. You have to, it's superposition. But again, they're going to try to fit it in. They're going to try to overlay panpsychism over it And if they don't, if it doesn't, if panpsychism doesn't fit over top of my theory, they'll throw out my theory rather than panpsychism because it's about panpsychism, right? So they, you know what I mean, right? Is they're trying to, they have it. So when I'm looking for something, I have a mental image of it in my head, right? In my mind's eye, I have an image of what I'm looking for, and I superimpose that image over stuff that I'm looking at. And I've done this more than once, a few times, is when, because that image that I have in my mind of what I'm looking for is incorrect, is actually in a different container, what I'm looking for. It's not in the shape of what I'm superimposing over it. I'll look directly at what I'm looking for and not recognize it. Look directly at it, right? And not recognize it as what I'm looking for because it doesn't fit the mental image in my head. And that's what all of these people are doing, right? When I present my theory to someone who has their own theory or their own worldview, they try to superimpose their worldview onto my theory. And when it doesn't fit their worldview, instead of disposing of their worldview and changing their worldview, they dispose of my theory because they don't recognize that that's actually what they're looking for, but it's not fitting their mental image of what they're looking for, right? They're looking for a final concluding ultimate truth, but the image that they have in their head of what that is incorrect. So when they look at it, when I'm presenting it to them, they don't see it. It's a perfect analogy. So you can't have any image in your head before you start this endeavor. You can't be holding on to any worldview at all because you won't see the actual final concluding truth when it's presented to you. Yes. And it shows how everyone's been wrong. But everyone's been wrong. So we should be asking the question, why is everyone wrong? Why haven't we reached the final concluding theory? Even though that's what all these people, all the philosophers and all the scientists through all of history that have been trying to find the final concluding theory, and it hasn't yet shown up. So we should maybe be asking why. Maybe there's something that everyone is affecting everyone at a deeper fundamental level than anyone is willing to go. And that's why every single theory is wrong. If you find out why the theories are wrong, then you can correct that. You can't just keep going on with the theories when the initial assumption that began all the theories is wrong. See what I mean, right? It's the Kobayashi Maru. It's exactly the Kobayashi Maru situation. It's set up so you cannot possibly find the answer. It's not possible. So you need to tweak the questions, right? You have to tweak the 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 language so it's allowable, so that the answer can actually be allowed. Well, gang, I'm going to call her for this episode. It's good seeing you again, Rusty. I'm glad you're still alive and such. And Jan Can, of course. My regulars and Paige. And thanks for dropping by, whatever your name is. See you next weekend or not. Hold to the practice.